Welcome to another episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name's Nick Ponty. I'm joined with my co-host Stephen Clark. How you doing?
Hello, Nick. How you doing?
You're standing outside the school gates, mate, waiting on your daughter's first day back at school. So, cool. We're on the move again.
That's it, mate. School pickup runs. This is our first full day actually, so it's quite cool that my business is exactly kind of what I wanted to do when I set out the goals kind of 5 years ago, which was to have that freedom to come and pick Maya up to and drop her off and pick her from school. So, aye. No,
that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I saw your post earlier in the week there, and it got huge love because, see, it's not about the money, is it? We've talked about this a lot before. It's about the freedom, and it's about
the freedom that property can bring to you and bring to your life and the goals that you've set out and you want for your future. So yeah, it's quite nice. It was quite a weird feeling actually because, you know, as much as I'd set out with that intention, I didn't realise that it quickly came upon us, and I thought, oh God, we're here. And obviously, I've just taken on my first full-time employee a couple of months ago as well, and I realised that all these little goals that you kind of set out to yourself, you do end up achieving them. So it's made me kind of think a little bit bigger with my goals as well to try and push a little bit more for the next 5 years. But it's good.
Yeah, nice one. Try and get some joint ventures at the school gate, mate.
I'll try and network.
Try and do some network. Right, okay, so we've got a great guest on the show today. We've just recorded an interview with Scott Weir of Pillow Partners. Now, I've known Scott for a while, met him at various networking events, followed him on social media. He's got a great business, hasn't he, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. I followed him on social media for a couple of years as well. It's probably one of the guys that stand out in the kind of Scottish property, you know, space that are quite predominant on social media, and he does pretty sell out there. And I love his model, and he's thought very big with his model as well. He went from the letting agent and property investor to starting Pillow Partners, but not even starting Pillow Partners, which is obviously a service accommodation provider, but he's franchised it and got quite a unique model with it, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's going global now. He's actually going to be launching Pillow Partners over in the States. So this guy's got big plans, big ambitions. He's a proper entrepreneur, multiple businesses. He did mention some juicy figures there in the interview as well. We forgot to ask him how many units, but they're all over the UK as well. They've got various different property managers to manage all the units around about the country. So it was just interesting just speaking to him about how he set that up, you know, his view on the legislation that's come in for short-term lettings, and just loads of good wee business tips and what the future is. So we'll cut to the interview with Scott and hope you enjoy this one, guys. Here we go. Okay, so we're delighted to have Scott Weir from Pillow Partners on the show today. How you doing, Scott?
I'm amazingly well, guys. Thank you for having me on, and thank you everyone that's watching.
Great stuff. So I've come across you a few times, Scott. We've met in the past, obviously at various networking events, and you've given like talks and done presentations and that in the past. And I know you've got a load of experience in the property world, so we thought you'd be a great guest to have on the show. So do you want to just start giving us a quick background introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Hi, Nick. Hi, Stephen. So, my name's Scott Weir, CEO and founder of Pillow Partners. We manage short-term rental properties. So, my background's been property management. I think I set my first business up, Homesure, which was a letting agency, 2006. So, worked for various letting agents for probably 5 years for that. Our office is based in Ayrshire, a rental portfolio that we manage on the residential side for the letting agency. Probably the west coast of Scotland, so Ayrshire and Glasgow. We've got an estate agency as well. So starting in 2006, 2016, set up Pillow, which was specifically to manage short-term rental units, corporate lets, contractors and holiday homes. So all merged into one, doing lots of cool things. COVID hit, we set up something else, which was Invest Scotland, which was getting high net worth probably American individuals to invest in Scotland. So some nice projects there. And the most recent thing is due to Pillow's success, we are launching our own charity linked to the short-term rental industry. We're going to call it Pillow Safe Havens, but we are essentially doing rent-to-rents in properties where we give them exclusively to charity. So we control it and we gift them to young kids end of life, child poverty, homelessness, mental health, domestic abuse. Anybody that needs it can apply to us and they'll get a weekend or a week in the properties. We fully fund it, so they don't need to pay anything. We stock the fridge, and if it's low-income families travelling, we'll pay their travelling expenses and just give amazing experiences to people. And I know it's a property podcast and not a charity podcast, but it's how we've used property to do good and give back to communities as well. So that's the most exciting project. But we essentially a property management company. Short-term lets have about 500 residential lets, and the rest are holiday homes.
No, that's quite good to hear you say that, because I think a lot of time we get caught up, in the numbers, making profit as property investors. And of course, you want to generate a good business cash flow and all that. But see, if you can actually do some good and give back and all the rest of it, I mean, it's something I think about loads, with the huge issue that we have surrounding homelessness and stuff like that. I would love to be able to do something. So that's great to hear. How's that working for you? That's your kind of latest project then, the charity. So
yeah, well, I mean, back before lockdowns and the staycation boom, some properties didn't always have 100% occupancy. So we thought, well, certainly over Christmas and New Year, some owners didn't want to rent them out. So why if we could use that for good? So we asked all owners many years ago to do a pillow pledge, where they donated 7 days a week off peak if they're empty, and we would raffle that off and raise some funds for external charities. So we have been doing that. The team have been doing a massive amount over the last few years, especially during lockdowns, where we decided, well, if we're raising money for external charities, we don't know how that's spent, and we've worked with some amazing charities. If we create, and we're hoping to have 40 safe havens all over the UK, just safe spaces for people to go, then we've got lots of donations for them, but we can give them to people that we know deserve them, and then we can raffle that off to raise money for other charities if need be. So that's the exciting part of coming out of lockdown stronger than we went in, and being able to do that new project.
I think that's really good as well, because a lot as business owners, we all start off with, like Nick said, the intentions of turnover, return on investment, growing our businesses. But I think, me and Nick spoke about this quite a lot as well. You do aspire to kind of use your property, your knowledge, your business knowledge to give back. Has that been a plan right from the start, when the business was more established, was to do something to give back?
Yeah, with the first business, HomeSure, with residential lettings, it probably wasn't, because people say, Scott, Pillow's doing well, but there was 10 years, and Nick has a letting agency. We had the letting agency for 10 years, and it wasn't.
You're still seeing the pain on this face. You're seeing the pain, mate.
Yeah, Pillow's doing great, yes, but there was 10 years where we probably didn't make profit. I had to sell buy-to-lets to put in to pay the staff wages, to make sure the VAT get paid. So there was 10 years of pain where we couldn't focus on charity, because it was about keeping the business alive and growing it and paying staff wages. We noticed at the early stages, Stephen, that if we didn't, you guys on property, if you didn't get your property let by mid-December, it would sit to mid-January. Nobody wants to move in, and landlords they knew things were shut. So you'd have a month of unoccupancy there, and we wanted to use that month, which could be the coldest month of the year, to give to homeless people. And it turns out that local authorities don't want you helping homeless people. They don't want you you'd need an HMO license. So you couldn't physically take homeless people off the street and give them showers and give them a bed, because local authority, or people in local authorities, said it might be dangerous. Well, sleeping in the streets in sub-zero temperatures, or perhaps being in a buy-to-let, they viewed it and it said we would shut you down and prosecute you. So we noticed solving homelessness is something that probably people at Susan Actimel from Homes for Good do much better than we ever could. So when it came to short-term rentals, if you've got a normal rental, somebody's in it, 2 years, it's not empty. But with short-term rentals, we noticed if these are sitting empty for just 1 week a year, and we could get 1,000 properties, that's a lot of nights that we could give back and raise money to charity. So it was just selfish not to do it. And thankfully, our owners loved that idea. And it isn't me that does it, it's the owners that donated the properties, and people donate gifts and people buy them at raffles. So it really is our owners and the general public that drive that.
That's cool. I really like that. That's smart. Well, we've got a lot to cover then, because obviously you've got multiple businesses as well. One thing that I've always been curious, right, I wanted to ask you was with the HomeSure, right? Like, obviously Pillow Partners is your kind of baby and all that. HomeSure you never really speak about. Is that because, like you just said, about the 10 years of hard graft building that business, is that almost just kind of like set up now, ticking away, and you don't really have to talk about that on social media and all the rest of it?
Yeah, well, HomeSure was a brand, and I made it up because it represented how you make brands and names up. Something to do with houses, something to do with trust. We made that up, and we built that over 10 years. And then when I stepped back with 2 high street offices, your classic high street estate agency and letting agency, a branch in Ayr and Kilmarnock, and the team, who are all next door, had said, I said, I'm going to go and start this new business, this new Pillow. And they're like, Pillow? It's weird. And I went away to here in Dundonald to Sir Tom Hunter's Accelerator. So in his office downstairs from Sir Tom Hunter, and he gave us free office space. And I crafted this idea with Pillow. But where HomeSure was, that took me 10 years, because the business model is slightly more scalable. It's just different. We kind of leapfrogged where HomeSure was in a year to 18 months. So all that 10 years of graft and making mistakes and learning and wasting money in marketing that didn't work, and me being a naive leader, all those mistakes were made, and we could implement something fresh with Pillow. So it just so happens that nobody finds normal residential lettings in any way exciting. We were invisible, and even if we tried to push it, it was just never interesting. And for some reason, Pillow just did something slightly different that the Scottish Government were interested in and supported us, but we would never have had that with HomeSure. So the brand still exists, it's still there. It's just that nobody wants to talk about residential lettings, and that's my bread and butter. I love it. Like I love residential lettings.
I do feel that you are a lot more passionate about the Pillow brand and all that, and it's like that's your thing, isn't it? Really.
Well, I made the commitment to the guys. If I'm going to set this up, you guys set, and I think there's a team of 7 in a residential letting agency, and that's self-contained. So as much as I would like to, I don't get involved. I let them go rather than going in and micromanage it. So they do a fantastic job of that. Many years ago, when you go and see the likes of John Blackwood, and I'd know everything about residential lettings, and I'd say, "Oh, nobody knows more than me about the legislation. I don't know that now," and the team do. So they've all leapfrogged me regards knowledge, especially around the PRT and the new, evictions. Can you evict someone in Scotland? I don't think you can. You probably can't. So they know the legislation, which is why I don't jump in the forums anymore, in the Facebook, because my knowledge isn't as up to date as the rest of the team.
Oh,
what was the reason behind Pillow then? What was the reason for the change from the long-term lets to the short-term lets? Did you see something in the marketplace that you thought was an opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few reasons. One was it was at the right time. If I'd done it 5 years earlier, it wouldn't have worked. If I'd done it 5 years late, it would have been too late, and we wouldn't have got traction. But so there was a rise in Airbnb and short-term lettings, but you guys are in the buy-to-let industry. I got a whiteboard and did a thing of all the things that wasn't increased government interference, more tenant rights, less landlord rights, landlords not wanting to pay your fees, new agents coming online that were doing it for 6% and 5%, and you couldn't compete with them. So we pretty much put up on a whiteboard what all those problems were, and it turned out that the courses that you see for serviced accommodation, well, it turned out that we had been doing that for before I even started HomeSure. We rented properties and put pilots in them for Prestwick Airport. We had been doing these corporate lets and managing holiday lets for a decade, but we didn't subcategorize. It was just a tiny fraction of lettings. But when the courses started coming and there was a bigger awareness for service accommodation, and Airbnb made the sharing economy more widely known, well, we thought, well, actually, that small market segment that we've always done, we could actually focus and put resources into that, brand it, because HomeSure is good for residential lettings, but for international clients, Pillow was something we come up with that was new and unique. You get the domain names, and it was something that a good night's sleep is fundamental to any hotel or any short-term rental staycation.
I think that's what I like about you, Scott, because I remember being in a room. It was like a basement room somewhere in Glasgow, and you were the speaker, and you came on there, and this was literally before I'd even heard of Airbnb and all that, or maybe it was just coming about. And you said, guys, this is it. This is going to be the next big thing. This is literally holiday lets, but this is going to be a huge market for people to get involved in. So you have been in this for a long time. You're not just jumped on the trend. Like a lot of people did, like probably including myself, that had a couple of Airbnbs and stuff.
Well, I'm thinking back to all the times we were in basements together, Nick, and I remember the one that was, it was a panel, and there was someone that said, my thing was, short-term lettings, and someone was against. That person had holiday lets already, so yeah, that was before there was a Pillow. So I remember that now that you mentioned it.
That was before Pillow, yeah. So no, it's great. I mean, would you say that having the home share and that, did that give you a wee head start? Because did you have like owners already, like maybe when you pitched this idea to them about more short term, did you have some properties that you could just get like ready and going with?
Well, there was already some we managed. It was all within home share, and we didn't, it was just different services within the one company. But when it came to solving problems for owners, we saw some owners that were in a really bad way, and we could solve that via rent to rent. So we could take some rent to rents off them. We could operate them as serviced apartments, and it helped them with cash flow, it helped them with stress. We would do properties up. So we did take a handful, I think less than 5 in the early days, but it was good for us that the landlords that were really financial difficult times or having problems, we could solve those problems, and that made it a really strong relationship, because they might have needed to give the keys back to the bank because the property wasn't working and they couldn't afford to do it up. So solving problems for people helped us get our portfolio up quicker.
And you touched on obviously starting a new business and all that. You know, a lot of our listeners are, you know, that's what they want to achieve. They want to work for themselves, so they want to go into business and that. So if you get any kind of tips for listeners, you know, you mentioned you got involved with Sir Tom Hunter, and there's other different kind of schemes and all that people can get involved with. Is there anything that you particularly recommend at the start?
Well, back when we were involved in lots of business accelerator programs, and the Scottish government were very good to us. Again, there's very little support. It only goes to COVID. There's nothing else matters regards funding apart from COVID. So back then, genuinely, the Scottish ecosystem was the best in the world. And I mean, we'd been over to America and Silicon Valley and Boston and had experienced their side of things. And even in England, there was a fraction of the startup resources that there were. So even now, there are a lot of startup resources in Scotland if you know where to look. So, and I believe that will come back, and I believe that will come back even stronger, because the government need to stimulate the economy and support the businesses that have been pretty much eradicated via government policy and destroyed. They're going to need to get that back. So there will be lots of help out there. And that's the fundamental difference. Going back to your last, I didn't ask for any help. I had that entrepreneur's martyr syndrome. No, I'll do it myself for the first 10 years. And I had my head down, and I learned that there's lots of support out there. There's lots of other business people out there, probably like yourself, guys. If you got a phone call from a young entrepreneur, you would be more than happy, as long as they weren't time wasters and disrespectful of your time, you'd be happy to give half an hour of your time to anybody that was where you guys are now, going back to where you were years ago. So Scottish entrepreneurs are very, very happy to help. So that's one, look for government and agency help, and speak to other experienced entrepreneurs, because they're happy to help.
You set a franchise model up from Pillow Partners, didn't you? Did you start off with your main office in Ayrshire and then just kind of grow it from there? Yeah,
so where we are now, we've got space. I think there's probably 16 that work here. We've got another 20 odd employees that work. So I think we're up to 37 employees that work all over the UK, but we've got 20 franchisees. So what I noticed was staff were coming, they'd work for your letting agency, they'd build your portfolio, and then they'd leave to start a family or to move away, and they were left with nothing. So what we wanted, you hear people saying hump day and can't wait to Friday. So I thought we'd try something different and say, rather than having employees, so regional property managers, so we've got Emma in Glasgow, Jen in Perth, all over the UK. Let's create 50 opportunities where people have their own business, and rather than being an employee for Pillow or setting up in competition against Pillow, well, it's Pillow Partners, so why don't we partner? We call it franchise, but it's just a partnership. We help each other to use all our systems. And the business model being they don't have any monthly outgoings. We pay for everything for them. They can get the world's best tech and IT that we use. They've got loads of support. They don't need to worry. They're a big community. They're a big family. So they don't need to sit at home worrying about bills and worrying about, not knowing things, because we're one big family. So we gave that a go, and it's successful, and it's even more successful after lockdown, because amazing people have been unfortunately made redundant and lost their jobs, or circumstances have really affected their life. So now we are attracting some amazing people that we might not have got because they were in really high hospitality, travel, tourism jobs. So it was a slightly different approach. It could have failed in the early days. I didn't get it right. But the team are now doing most of the work and coaching and mentoring and really nurturing the young partners coming up.
Okay.
And a much better job than I did.
So let's take you back to, I think it was March last year, was it? So you switched on the telly, you watched the news, and, you know, Boris Johnson, Nicola Sturgeon are locking down the country. What was your initial thoughts when you saw that about, you know, your business?
Well, with there was a mindset change in a week, because there was, if you go back to social media, you would have seen I'm taking selfies in the actual campus of Facebook. I was over in LinkedIn. I was seeing Apple. I was over in Silicon Valley and pitching to Silicon Valley Bank and doing all these, which to me at the point was like amazing. Young Ayrshire boy, well, not young, okay, well, young businessman in Ayrshire, and then I'm over there doing that. And then
hanging out with Mark Zuckerberg and all that.
Yeah, just did cool things that were totally alien to me 5 years ago. And it just goes to show, you can say, look at my social media, I'm in Facebook's campus and I'm doing all these things. And then a week later, I'm back here, all the team are gone, they're all working from home, I'm sitting in the office myself, and it's now illegal. The government have literally made it illegal to make money in the short-term rental industry. So not only has the market disappeared, but it's illegal to make money. So there was a mindset shift. So yeah, I haven't watched TV, the news, read a newspaper, listened to the radio in 22 years. So when I did do it, it just blew my mind. And there was a period of probably 24 to 48 hours where it kind of hit me hard. Then I thought, well, you know what, let's do things differently. So rather than watching the TV, I spent a lot of time with people over in the US, all the people I'd met. And when you spend time with definitely deca millionaires and billionaires in America, they have a different mindset to the doom and gloom media here and the Facebook groups, and everybody was immersed in it. And I wanted to take myself out of it. So rich people see this as an opportunity. Business people like us could easily say, this is disastrous. How can we possibly get out of this? But there was the thing of, young Kim had worked for us for 10 years and she's going to need to get made redundant. How can we possibly, we 50, 60,000 pounds a month of outgoings, faced with, our income going slash. So it was a tough couple of days, but then the team just changed. A lot work from home and focus my time, ignore the media, and just get down to solving problems, changing the business model, and it worked out very well, considering.
Aye, well, like you say, it was literally like illegal, like you say, to do a short-term let, and I presume there was that whole headache of cancellations, refunds, all that. That must have been a headache.
Yeah, so we had it, and I think it was either Sykes or Scottish Cottages, and someone had been the government had contacted in England the head of the biggest kind of listing sites, cottages.com, so that we got a heads up that the industry was going to shut probably 48 hours before anything else, because somebody had said, this is happening, it's going to close. And it was unfathomable with them, but now it's just, it is what it is. But then Airbnb also shut everybody's listings down. So even if you wanted to earn money, you couldn't. They refunded all the guests. So that was a bad position to be in. We were very lucky with our business model that, excuse me, a dog-friendly office will always be dogs barking. We were lucky because nobody else could advertise their properties because Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO shut them down. But the team were busy with phone calls because we had a lot of not just holiday lets, but contractors and key workers. We gave our properties away because they were empty, but you could legally give them to key workers. So we gave lots of ones away or for nominal prices. So we got a lot of traction. People phoned us, and some of, certainly in Glasgow, I think 26 units were at 100% occupancy for the whole year. So we were in a good position. Had we just done holiday lets, it would be bad. but we had the income from the residential lettings and lots of key workers, contractors and corporate lets as well that just got us income. So very lucky. That 48-hour period, I didn't think this would happen at the start, but we made profit every single month. We kept all the team. We ended up with more team, more properties, and now it's the best months we've ever had. But
that's what I was going to say. I mean, like, did you not lose loads of properties? The donors not sort of say, well, I'm not going to do short term anymore. I'm going to just stick it back in the long term lets and stuff.
Yeah, so some people just could not. We had holiday homes in the Lake District that couldn't. The neighbours would have. You just couldn't rent them even to contractors because the neighbours were so protective of their community. They didn't want people coming in. So neighbours were snitching, and again, we were legal. We never did anything illegal, but they didn't want people there. So we probably lost over $1 million. I think we talked 1.1 million. We lost income that we should have got, but some owners decided to pack it in. Some went to buy to let, and thankfully a lot sought out. But we just changed the properties. There was a massive demand. Because we were slightly bigger, we didn't rely on the online travel agent, so people could find us online. People did know of us. The bigger corporate relocation companies like Situ, Salvador, Sweet Hub phoned us, and nobody else was answering their phones. We were working. We never stopped all the way through. So we just changed the business model and put as many corporates in as we could in long term.
It's good, mate. It's a sentiment to your kind of entrepreneurial spirit of adapting when crisis kind of hits in, and obviously solving that problem, which a lot of times was contractors and key workers needing housed throughout the pandemic. So
well, again, I can't take the credit for that. It's all the team, and one of the cool things was you asked the question, but those franchisees were commission only, so they worked harder than anybody else during the lockdown because they were commission only. If they were employees and furlough, they wouldn't have cared. Yeah. Hopefully mine would have, but employees getting 100% or 80% of the money would not be trying to rent properties because our team were commission only and it was their business. They fought hard. They were working till 11 o'clock at night to get those properties let, which was beneficial to our clients.
And just talk about how it's really, let's go on a positive note now, because that must have been quite painful thinking back to those times. But let's go on a positive coming out, like how have things rebounded? What sort of shapes the industry in now? I mean,
yeah, so staycations, if you've tried to book a staycation or any viewers tried to book a staycation, you'll notice there's very little occupancy, and that there is massively expensive. So the industry in August is the industry's busiest time of year for most places, but prices are definitely up 25 to 50%. People can't go abroad or are choosing not to go abroad. So the staycation market is insanely busy. It's the busiest we've ever seen it. Probably get 12 to 18 months of that. People will just not go abroad for, even if they can, it's still going to be pretty scary to go abroad for a lot of people. Not everybody's going to be vaccinated. The countries who want to, they're going to be fearful that the government will change something and they get caught, need to isolate. So there's a lot of fear around that. And people just want the nice, safe, easy option. It's the safest place to staycation. You don't need to go abroad. So that's going to keep going. There's some industry regulation coming in later in the next couple of years. So that's going to change things again, which will definitely get rid of a lot of units. And as that availability goes down, but demand stays the same, then it's going to be a hard few months for the operators. But financial wise, it's going to be a good few years.
Can you touch on what legislation?
You go.
Sorry, can you touch on what legislation is coming in for the listeners that don't know?
Yeah, so basically the legislation that's coming in is that the government have set up consultations, wanted advice from everybody. They've ignored every single bit of advice and done the exact opposite of the Fiona Campbell's hard work at this.
And we had Fiona on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, and she was obviously explaining to us the troubles that they've actually left that whole steering group, haven't they?
Yeah, everybody's like, I think she was quoted, and many newspapers said it was a sham or a scam, I can't remember, but so if she's covered that.
No, but keep going, because we want to hear your view on it.
Well, like any government interference, it's got good and bad points. The good thing I think about, and one of the things you might have saw at Nick Ponte's thing, I had at the, was it at the village, Nick Ponte's, not Nick Ponte.
That's me.
Barry Dudley's. Because I saw you there.
Aye.
The Scottish Property Summit, I was speaking and said, within 3 years, 75% of the units will be gone. Well, that still stands because we're 2 years because COVID shut us down for 18 months. So that timeline kind of stands. Not all properties will get licenses. They'll definitely not get licenses in Glasgow city centre or Edinburgh city centre. They have made that clear. Many of our units before this got sheriff's officers coming with cease and desist letters, CCing in the mortgage company as well to say you're operating as buy-to-let. You've got a buy-to-let mortgage, but you're operating as short term. It turns out we weren't. We were doing corporate lets, so we just made that very clear. But yeah, in some areas, 75% of the stock will be gone. Why? Well, any regulation pushes people out. They're going to need to have the right planning consent, which most don't. Again, if you look at Airbnb, probably 90% don't have the right planning, don't have the right mortgage. There's something in the title deeds to prohibit it. So there's obstacles there where a lot of owners are just flying under the radar. When that radar gets literally examined by local authorities, and the local authorities need to give out licenses, most people will probably choose to take a step back. Those that stay in the industry will apply, and I suspect half of them will be knocked back. The Scottish government don't want it. They definitely don't want it in Edinburgh City Council area. They don't want it in Glasgow. They've already made that clear. I just hope it doesn't affect the rural and the country places. There's lots of talk. Cities will sort themselves out because there's lots of SA units, and perhaps it should be residential lettings and people buying. But
surely the rural ones will seriously affect the kind of the tourism industry in Scotland in general.
Yeah, well, as we record this, Stephen, all these organisations are saying you're making blanket things for the whole of Scotland, but there's some places that massively rely on tourism, and if you've got someone from a local authority that's making decisions in people's livelihoods, there's a good chance those decisions won't always be fair or right, and there'll be many businesses that have operated for a long time that won't be given licenses. And I know for planning, if it's over 10 years, you get a letter of comfort, so there's maybe the 10-year rule will come in, but there's going to be legit businesses that are bringing money into local communities that are going to be forced out. And that's a negative side. The good side of this, of course, is that industry standards should go up. There'll be minimum standards, the same as the buy-to-let. I mean, Nick, when you probably started, and I don't know your story as much, Stephen, but back when we were doing our first buy-to-lets, it was a gas safety check. That was it. You just needed a gas safety check. Now you need lots of things. So if we can raise standards in the short-term lettings industry, then that negative perception, I mean, Edinburgh detest it and go vigilante, gluing key boxes. New York, Berlin, Barcelona, all these places, there's groups of residents locally that hate it. And if we can raise those standards, hopefully the perception in the industry will be brought up and people will start to like it because we bring money into local economies. It's a positive. So
I think Fiona's argument and Fiona's association's argument was that they were wanting, correct me if I'm wrong, you might know better than me, but was it to do with they were wanting a registration, so like a landlord's registration rather than a licensing?
Yeah,
that's what they were arguing for, right? So basically, what do you think yourself, to put you in the spot? What do you think's best for the industry?
I suppose I would always go for the libertarian point of view and minimum government interference in anything. So I would probably agree with Fiona. Something there, because there are genuinely people, and 10 years ago, I did it with buy-to-lets, and most people that enter the market will shoehorn a buy-to-let and make it service accommodation when it actually should never be. It doesn't fit. It's going to annoy the neighbours. It's illegal to do it under the title deeds. When I started many years ago, it was always holiday homes. And if you've got a lovely holiday home in the country with a hot tub, something near the beach, and it's not annoying empty, then perhaps there should be a register of that, because the government want to know what properties are doing what, and Airbnb are probably going to open up if they haven't done already. open up all their accounts to HMRC. So people aren't going to, even if they don't regulate it, the HMRC will still know that owners are doing this with their properties, because Airbnb will open up the financials. So regulate a database would be good, and then we can see, again, one of the things about the legislation coming in is, well, we'll just ask all your neighbours if they're okay with it. And let's say you guys stayed in or any viewer stayed in a block of eight flats, and there was one there that wanted Airbnb, and you were an Airbnb landlord yourself and you had a business. Would anybody ever give permission for that one Airbnb? No, because even if they loved Airbnb, we'll say Airbnb because it's a well-known term, but the short-term lettings industry, nobody would do it just in case, and not in my backyard. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want it upstairs from me. So neighbours will never give that consent. But if you've got an absolute nightmare of a guest upstairs, then there should be something that you can contact. And the same as if somebody's dealing drugs out your buy-to-let or constantly causing antisocial behaviour, you should be able to contact these. And again, you were an operator now, you'd want a phone call from someone to say, your guests are causing carnage, can you sort it out? And only people that don't care about what their guests are doing would have a problem with being contactable about that.
Yeah.
Surely it makes it easier as a neighbour of one of these properties, that if someone's been a nuisance for a night or two, it'd be easier to deal with a neighbour rather than having a tenant who was up to no good or having parties or being a nuisance. Because I mean, we all know how hard it is to evict a tenant from your buy-to-let property. It could go on for months and months and months, but at least if you had one bad egg, they're gone within a night or two anyway. But I don't know if probably people won't look at it that simplistic.
Yeah, we having lots of properties. One of the hardest things to deal with isn't problem owners or problem guests, it's neighbours, because once neighbours got a bee in their bonnet, I can hear them slamming the microwave. You can tell not to use they should only use the microwave till 7 at night, and different things, and bins not been put out, and some are legitimate concerns. But for neighbours, they can just sabotage businesses, and very much like the safe deposit scheme, or other safe deposit schemes are available, but the deposit schemes in Scotland, it isn't the landlord or the letting agent that makes the decision. As long as you put your evidence, it's an independent body. So if we get registration and we're there, someone isn't just going to make your life a misery, because they can go to an independent body and they would make the decision. If it was me saying, who cares if there's parties? Well, I'm in the wrong. But if the neighbour's annoyed that someone's coming and going twice a week, then that's going to be, to me, you're right, Stephen, if I put a tenant in a property, they're there 24/7, it'll be a family, there's people coming and going. But if you put people in the short-term rental industry, they're never really going to be there. They're out working, they're going home at the weekends, they're maybe coming and going, it's empty some of the time. So there is less noise in a buy-to-let on average over, let's say, 3 years. There's less noise, there's less hassle and less trouble from your average buy-to-let.
Aye, and I was just while you were talking about neighbours there, I actually just remembered there that I got a text message here, and it's it's at midnight on the Saturday night there, just past, and the message was, "Hi, whoever you have let your flat out to tonight is taking the piss, screaming and shouting outside the back door. My neighbour upstairs has contacted the police." Now, I got rid of my last Airbnb about 2 years ago, so I don't know what's going on. I better investigate that. But just on the fact of neighbours and complaining, and obviously you've got property managers set up to probably deal with that sort of stuff. But do you get much backlash? Is it a real issue for you guys?
And when you scale up, I mean, it's if you look at the forums, I always think the service accommodation UK and the service accommodation forums, and people are going on there with the biggest, most problematic drama they've ever had in their life, and we think, well, we've dealt with 3 of those already this morning, because when you deal with hundreds and hundreds of units and near 1,000 units, you see absolutely everything. So you see things, or even if things are perfect, there'll be neighbours. We get lots of reports, and you come in and there's people phoning. I'm going to the place at an absolute party. I'm phoning the place, and I'm phoning a councillor, and I'm reporting you to the newspapers. And then you get the next phone message is like, sorry, it's not your property. Many apologies. And we probably get that twice a weekend where somebody's phoning threatening to shut your property down, go to the newspapers, local councillors, and it's the wrong property. So,
well, I think that's what's happened there in that text message, because that number, I think they've got the wrong flat, because there's probably, like you say, there's 8 in the block, and there's probably about 3 or 4 doing Airbnb, and I finished mine like a couple of years ago. I've got a great tenant in mine, so I can't imagine it'll be him. But anyway, no, that's interesting. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have a time scale yet for this. Do we have a time scale? Has it started in Edinburgh and Glasgow, this legislation?
and it does get updated, but it was, I think, local authorities need to have a plan in place by 2022. So I forget the time scale. It might have slipped, and then all properties have got a year to conform and get the licenses required. So they've given local authorities to either 2022 or 2023, and I think that will slip, and then another year for us to comply and get every single unit ready.
It's an interesting debate, because, like, actually, my wife's friend's staying with us at the moment. She's from Galsby, Brora, up in the Highlands, and she was like that. She's just come down from there. She's like, there's like 50 Airbnbs set up there, and she's like, there's people now, like English people, like buying, foreigners buying little cottages and houses and all that, and just flinging them on Airbnb. So you can kind of understand it from a local's point of view. But then again, like you said, a lot of their income is generated from tourism as well. So it's quite a big argument. It's a big debate, isn't it?
It is. And if I take a place where we started off, one of our very first properties in Port Patrick, down near the kind of Stranraer area, and it had lots of holiday lets and second homes, and you'd go in, and in the early days, you'd buy logs for your nice country cottage, and they'd be like, "You bloody Airbnb operators," and I've just sold me logs, and I'm like, what percentage of your money comes from holidaymakers? And I'm like, 90%, but I hate these all. And you're like, oh, you wouldn't have a business. You still hate the industry, but you wouldn't have a business. And we did some figures, and this is Ayrshire, and we go to the Lake District, you'll treble this easy, in the Peak District, and some areas in the UK. But in Ayrshire, which isn't that affluent, for every 50 properties we had, we generated, or the guests generated, over £1 million a year to local communities. So person living in a property doesn't go out and go to restaurants every day. They don't take taxis. They don't spend money in gift shops as much. So someone coming here, especially from overseas, will spend a lot more money in the local community than someone that lives here. There's businesses that are set up like cleaners. You would probably clean your own house, but you would get cleaners in, cleaning properties 3 times a week sometimes. So we did the figures for it, and just 50 properties brings in over £1 million extra a year to the Scottish economy, and from Ayrshire. And if you multiply that in Edinburgh, it would probably treble that. But that's extra income that local residents that lived here wouldn't go. And the other argument is, well, it takes away affordable housing and generation rent and all that whatever they're campaigning for. Well, that 3-bedroom penthouse in Lansfield Quay overlooking the hydro, that's never going to be affordable housing. That 4-bed cottage in the country with a hot tub isn't going to be affordable housing. So any decent holiday let, that's holiday and not serviced accommodation, that's a buy-to-let shoehorned in, it's not even a legit argument. There'll be some buy-to-let properties that are off the market for holiday lets, but they tend to, now in Scotland, they're not even classed as service accommodation, because it's now 28 days minimum. If you've got over 28 days, HMRC don't class that as short-term rentals. You don't need to charge VAT on it. It's seen as medium long-term. So don't say how we get round it in Glasgow, but all our Glasgow city centre lets are 6-7 months, definitely over 28 days. So that argument of taking away affordable housing it's tiny.
That's interesting. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, mate. I've not given you notice to this, but just for people who are starting out in, you don't, serviced accommodation, Airbnb, essays, what other terms are there for it? What's your top 5 tips, if you can think of any off the top of your head? What should they do?
One, I'd say future-proof your business. So what works now? But anybody can make money in this industry now, because people are desperate to people are desperate to go away. And if you can pop another unit on, even if it's shit, even if it's priced wrong, even if it's too high, you will rent it. You won't have a sustainable business because people won't come back, but you can make money now. So think of the future and get your property in areas that are going to make money. So there's a nice book, Nomad Capitalist. Andrew Henderson has a phrase, he's trademarked it now, and his phrase is, go where you are treated the best. So don't go to Edinburgh and these places where the council don't want you and residents don't want you. We are going to the US, so this next month we are launching in the US. We're going to go to Florida. Why? Well, they've got lots of vacation rentals. They welcome you in. They didn't shut because of lockdowns, because of the virus, and they're very welcoming. So we will go there. We are going to go to places like the Canary Islands. Why? Well, the tourism's massive. They welcome you in. They're not going to come and knock your door down and give you and fine you and send you to jail and give you paperwork like they will in city centre. So number one is future-proof your business. Well, is going to be things. Number two is go where you're treated the best, and that's places where the local communities actually want you there. The next thing is a nice tip. Don't think about it as property, think about it as hospitality. Now, even more so now, because you could have a property, but now people want more than the property because they're paying 50% more. So just having a nice place with a hot tub does not cut it. In the industry as a whole, refund hunters, never before seen it. And I've spoken to all the guys in the community, never seen so many people demanding refunds and being crazy with the smallest little thing. So if you just give them a property and you don't put some added extras, that wow factor, remember their names, write personal notes, make the property even more special. Because they're paying a premium, they're going to be very analytical about it and they won't see it as value. And they would have seen that same property as value at probably 30% less. So that's the next thing.
That's a really good point, actually. Sorry, before you move on to the next one, because I went to Haggerston Castle there, the caravan park, just a wee holiday with the kids and stuff, and turned up and I paid extra for a caravan with a decking, right? So the caravan was absolutely minted. It was like brand new, lovely composite decking and everything was great. And it turned up and there was no patio furniture, like there was no chairs and table to sit on. Yeah. And I'd paid extra for it. And I was like, what's going on here? Am I getting table and chairs to sit at? And they're like, oh no, it's just your luck whether you get them or not. And I was like, what?
I wouldn't accept that because you're paying more and you get annoyed. Yeah. So I suppose the last tip is there's two ways to control property: own it and lease it. And if you're doing rent to rent in any sort of way, you need to make that legal and a really, really strong relationship with the owner. Not necessarily financial and giving them more money, but if you are going to do the rent to rent model, you genuinely need to make that a massively strong foundation.
Rent to rent. Oh, that's a good one to go into, right? So what's your view on that then? Because this is where the course providers really kind of pounce on people, isn't it? Because like they're like, you can get involved in this industry with none of your own money, rent to rent. So is that you setting yourself up for failure, or can it work? Or
so I would say if I think back to
your dog's not impressed with rent to rent anyway.
No, it's I don't know if you can see them. I won't put them on, but there's dogs running about here. Probably half the rent-to-rent deals we've seen have failed because there's a few things. When people are getting rent-to-rent deals, they approach landlords and landlords see it as perceived risk and bang the rent up 25% in some cases. So rent-to-rents have done well. So a few tips to get rent-to-rents to work, because they don't all work. You definitely need to make sure that rent's right at the start. So if the rent's too high, it's never going to work. It's impossible. You just need to be getting 110% occupancy to get that to work. Next
this
thing
would be the rent from the landlord. This is what you as the operator would be getting.
Yeah, so you used to operate a SA unit. I'd say, Nick, let me rent that off you and I'll give you market rent or above or below. And that's the deal that you need to strike. But a lot of people, and landlords quite rightly so, say, I want more, I want a premium, because you're doing this and you'll be earning all this money, so I deserve a little bit more at the front end. It's hard to make work, and if you're going to go into more lockdowns, you've got a high break-even point. So you need to get that break-even point down. The next thing is have a good relationship with the actual landlord. Many people just do it. I'm trying to get the best deal. You're trying to get the best deal, Nick, and it's purely financial. But if I can solve a problem for you, Nick, if I can find someone that's got a property, maybe two people have moved in and they've got a property, they don't want to be a landlord. If you can make it win-win and solve a problem for someone, maybe they've not got the cash flow to do it up to make it legal, because one of ours, yep, you need a gas safety check, electrical, smoke alarms, fix your silver screen and change your carpet. Our first one said, I've not got money for that. I'm giving the keys back to the bank. I've not got 1,200 quid to spend on my negative equity buy to let. For me, I was like, that's okay. Well, we'll take that off you. We'll pay all, and we'll just pay the rents when the bills have paid off. So they were totally happy. They did not want to give that back because they get such a good deal, and we got a really low rent, but they didn't care, because as long as they covered their mortgage, they didn't need to give the keys back to the bank and have the negative things there. And the third one is the right property. If you've got a property in a close in Glasgow with a shared entrance and neighbours that have been there for 15 years and an elderly neighbour, they'll never let you run that business. If you've got a private entrance and it fits for your target market, and again, we've spoken about the 3 target markets, holidaymakers, contractors, and long-term corporate and executive lets. If you're trying to get contractors in a city centre, you won't get them because they need to park the van. It's expensive. They don't want to leave their tools. The rent's going to be too expensive for contractors sharing. They're going to want something in the outskirts, maybe a buy-to-X LA, plenty of parking for the vans, nice and safe, space for 6 of them to share. But if it's not the right property, you'll never make money. So I think it's very hard to do rent to rent, and I've nothing against courses. You have more chance of doing it well if you've been in a course, because you have more knowledge, but it needs to be set up right.
And just on those points then, do you find yourselves quite selective when people come to you with properties then? Do you go through a process of saying, well, this one's going to work or not, or do you?
Yeah, like any business, we weren't in the early days, and we took everyone, and we did I wouldn't say a cull, but 3 years ago, but we did it. We got rid of probably 50% of our portfolio, and I don't know if they're here, but we have made these things up. We've got 6 client values now, so we make sure that the owner's values align with us, because we need them to trust us. We need them to cooperate with us. We need them to be loyal. So we don't want owners, because we'll charge management fees. Don't want owners cancelling our bookings because they've found someone to put in themselves to save like 30 quid in management fees. So we have some owners' values, and we make sure they align. So the team are very, very selective, and I don't say that we turn owners away, but if it isn't a good fit, and we know it's not a good fit because of thousands of owners over the years, if it isn't going to be a good long-term relationship, we know that because we've done it enough times. So if we're not the right agent, which we're not some of the time, we don't try to get business for business's sake. Some owners are just going to go with the budget person or the smaller company. It's just we are not the right fit for every owner, and they're not the right fit for us in a lot of cases.
Cool. And I'm eyeing up your malt whiskey collection in the background there, and I think you touched on it during the interview there about working, or it was before we actually started recording, about working with Americans. So is that the next stage for Pillow then, to get some American partners on board, some American?
So it's quite exciting. We were over in Boston and Silicon Valley, in San Francisco. Well, a lot of Americans have Scottish heritage. Most of them would say, and we jokingly said, my pitch to them, nice and simple, you can for the same price as a 1-bedroom apartment in London, New York, or San Francisco, you can get an 18-bedroom castle in Scotland. And that was all my map. Anytime I went to London or speaking to people, I would always say, you can get $1 million, you can get an 18-bedroom house, or you can get a 1-bedroom apartment above a takeaway in these other cities. So lots of Americans were saying, I'll give you $1 million, I'll give you $1 million. So we now have the opportunity when they come back, and we're first ones over on the 25th because COVID locked us down. We've got a member of staff dealing with that, just getting us getting people that would like to invest in Scottish real estate. We're doing it in a community basis, that we're taking something that isn't anything at the moment, turning it into a business and giving jobs to the local community and making a charity aspect. So if it is a big castle, we can use that, banquet hall for local community groups to use in different bits and pieces there. So we don't want foreign money coming in and destroying things. It's all done in a way that they need to say, we'll use that and give a certain element of that to local communities as well, so that charities and vulnerable groups can use it.
Great stuff. No, that's fantastic. So I think Stephen's prompted us to wrap up the interview here, because he's actually on the move. He's got his scooter. I know what he's doing. He's doing the school pickup. He's going to pick up his daughter from school. I think it's this.
I can't even be slipping on the first week.
No, right, okay, right. So that's about ours, just about up. Anyway, so we really appreciate your time, Scott, and it's been great to see Pillow progress through and survive lockdown, survive the COVID, and obviously a lot of people didn't survive. So it's been great to see you come out of it and start thriving again. So well done, you.
All done to the team. One final ask of your audience: we've got opportunities for young people that under the government Kickstart scheme. So we had 70, we've probably got about 30 left. So if anyone wants to nominate a young person between 16 and 24, again, somebody that is maybe going down a bad route in life that nobody's believed in, then we've got some real amazing young people here. So not a pitch for my business in any way, but if anyone knows young people that would just love to be in the property industry, get a chance, then they can get a placement for 6 months. Only criteria between 16 and 24 and on universal credit. So any audience members that know someone, then please share the details and we'll try and get them at a 6-month placement.
I'm glad you've had some positive experiences with it, because I try to get a couple for my business and nobody entertained me. So I don't know whether it was like they looked me up on social media. They're like, I don't want to work for him.
It's hard. We get 70.
Scott that at the start. He said that normal buy-to-lets are boring.
Yeah.
Well, one person, we were talking, and one person, the job centre coach, said, well, I was sceptical, Scott, about property, because the last guy had 6 buy-to-lets and wanted 6 placements, and he was going to drop these young Kickstarters off every day. They were going to rip the bathrooms out. They were going to split wallpaper for 6 months. So this guy was just going to put a Kickstarter in his buy-to-lets to do them up. So,
that might be me.
Yeah.
Cheap labour.
Yeah, no, that's good. So where can people reach out to you then, Scott? You do like your videos, your social media, you are quite active, aren't you? So
yeah, just Google Scott Weir, Google Pillow Partners. You'll come across the social media, the website, and just if anyone has any connections with young people who would like a chance, that's my give back to anybody that wants to get in the industry.
Awesome. Thanks very much. And thanks very much for your time today, Scott.
No worries. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Scott, and I hope you managed to take some good tips from it, and it helps you if you're interested in that SA service department short-term lets. As always, guys, if you're enjoying the podcast, then please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It would hugely help us to get some more exposure. We've got the Facebook group, which is always gathering momentum, and there's some good chat and debate on there. People show off their projects. Please post up all your renovation pictures and any projects that you get. And if you tag us on Instagram as well, if you tag myself and Stephen and the Scottish Property Podcast, then we will put you out to our followers as well, and that'll benefit you. Thanks again, everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.